So bright and early this morning, while I was literally still laying in bed waiting to start my day, I came across this article called Dear Democrats, Beware Dragon Voters. Taming right-leaning voters is as critical as mobilizing our base and persuading the undecided. And it's in this publication called Progressively Speaking on Medium. So the first thing I thought when I saw it, I was like, ugh. Another progressive thinks they understand Trump voters and they probably don't understand anything at all and blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of tweeted it out. I'd scanned it a little bit, but I hadn't really read it very closely. And sometimes I tweet things out. It's kind of like my to-do list to remind me to go back and look at this later, and maybe I get some insight from you guys along the way. But I gotta tell you, I just gave this article a much closer read. Karen's got some game. She does. Don't be fooled by her name. I don't think she's that kind of Karen. At least she doesn't have the haircut yet. But she's got some game. There's actually a lot in this article that she gets right. There's a couple things that she gets wrong, and we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to read this whole article, and I'm going to tell you what I think she got right and what I think she got wrong. But before we do that, just a quick bit of business. Listen, guys, if you like my channel, if you like the content that I'm creating, please go ahead, hit subscribe. If you think you're subscribed, you just might want to double check that, like Intellectual Iconoclasm here, who said to me, FYI, I've been unsubscribed by our overlords. So just go ahead, give it a quick double check for me, give this video a thumbs up, share it out. It really does help me to grow the channel, and I very much appreciate it. All right, let's dig into our article. Recently, a hardcore Trump supporter told me, I hated Trump my whole life. I voted against him even, but I never felt more personally committed to doing whatever I can to help him succeed than watching impeachment unfold. Think about that for a moment. He didn't vote for Trump, hated him in fact. Now he's mobilized not just to vote for Trump, but to do whatever he can to re-elect him. And I appreciated that she started it off with this because she's saying, listen, these walkaway people are real. This is not made up. And that seems to be something that just continues to be overlooked by the Democrats. They've really convinced themselves that these people that didn't vote for Trump, had no intention of voting for Trump, were always Democrats, like me, for 20 years. They've convinced themselves that people like me just don't exist. Now resist the temptation to write this guy off. See, she knows. I know you think he's crazy, but he's not. Just listen. This isn't an isolated case. I've been talking with Trump supporters almost non-stop since the 2016 election, and this sentiment is more the rule than the exception. It's not always so clearly expressed, but it's there. If you're not hearing it, it's because you're not asking the right questions or not engaging with Trump supporters at all. Ding, 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 ding. I would add on to that, it's because you might not be keeping an open mind. So if you're a Democrat and you're talking to Trump voters, and especially the ones that have converted from like Obama to Trump or Democrat to Trump or never Trump to Trump, you've got to keep an open mind about what they're saying. They have very, very, very legitimate grievances. They're not just making stuff up. They're not just whining. They're not stupid. They have very legitimate concerns. Don't believe me? Consider this conversation described by Erica Elston in her excellent new book, and I'm not going to pimp that book, How Liberals Can Communicate Across the Great Divide. Actually, that might be an interesting thing to check out. I take that back. Beyond Contempt, How Liberals Can Communicate Across the Great Divide. For white men, because they always have to have race in there, don't they? And this is a point that she kind of misses in this article, but we'll get into that. For white men, at a red-blue dialogue I attended, said they used to be liberal, but got tired of being lectured to and scolded. And yet she pointed out their race in the dang sentence, in like literally the same sentence. It's like they don't learn. None of them like Trump, but they did find his hostility to liberal finger-wagging highly appealing. One of them said he hated Trump, but less so every time the left attacks his supporters. He may be a fool, but he's our fool. And Trump has said the exact same thing. He said this at CPAC, I think. Like, I may be a bad guy, but I'm your bad guy. Comments like these crystallize a phenomenon I've been warning about for some time. Trump is an anti-fragile president, one who thrives when he and his followers are under assault. Like the X-Men supervillain Sebastian Shaw, the more you attack him, the stronger he gets. I think Trump being under attack is part of it, but it is not the whole thing. It's certainly a big part of it. We'll talk more about that. Anatomy of an invincible candidate. Negative partnerships. Remember when Trump said this? You know what they say? What else they say about my people? The polls, they say I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible. Sure, it was foolish bluster, but like many of the inane things he says, it also contained a grain of truth. The president's supporters are largely indifferent to his actions. Wrong. Wrong, Karen. Wrong. They're not indifferent. They know that he does things that they don't like, and they call him out. They really do. It's not that they're indifferent. It's that they see it as the lesser of two evils. It's like they don't like it, but they're like, I really hate the left, though. Like, I don't like this, but I really hate what the left is doing. What Trump's analysis gets wrong, however, is why his voters stick with him. He explains their support in terms of loyalty, but what really drives them is loathing for Democrats. It's not for Democrats. People need to understand this. It's not for Democrats generally. It's for the far left. It's for leftists. Leftists are not the same as Democrats. Not all Democrats are leftists, right? And frankly, not even all leftists are Democrats. A lot of leftists are like communists and socialists. Maybe they're in the Democratic Party because it's of the big two, one of the ones that they feel most closest to. But make no mistake, there is a war right now in the Democratic Party between traditional liberals, people like me, who have certain more centrist, like calm, rational core values, and the far left. And the far left is winning. They're taking over the party. And so that's what they hate. It's not Democrats, it's the far left. Political psychologists call this phenomena negative partnerships, and it's the dominant organizing force in American politics today. Over the past few decades, American politics has become like a bitter sports rivalry in which the parties hang together mainly out of sheer hatred of the other team rather than a shared sense of purpose. And frankly, I'm going to add this too. I think the hatred actually comes more from the left towards the right. Listen, man, when my article came out, I'll tell you what. The hatred that I felt towards the left, merely for saying that Trump voters are not bad people, that was overwhelming. It was hatred. It was flat hatred. They wanted to destroy me for simply stating, like, Trump voters are not bad people. That's the reality. So if you think the hatred is only going in one direction, you are absolutely wrong. And I would actually say it's far more severe from left to right than it is right to left. What people on the right say generally is, we hate the ideas that you have. We're not a fan of the ideas, but we don't hate you as people. It's kind of like hate the sin, not the sinner sort of thing. But the left thinks people on the right are straight evil. That's the difference. Republicans might not love the president, but they absolutely loathe his Democratic adversaries. Again, that's obviously coming from a perspective on the left. It's projection, right? She maybe, and I don't want to really make any assumptions here because she's actually written a very nuanced article. She may hate the right, or maybe doesn't understand them, whatever. She might be projecting that hatred onto them to say, oh, if I feel that way towards them, they feel that way towards me. That's what projection is. It's like you feel something in you and you start to see that thing in other people because it's a lot easier to call out that thing in other people than it is to acknowledge it in yourself. And because if you acknowledge it in yourself, that means, ooh, I have to do some work there. I have to do some inner work and no one can do that for me. That's a different topic for a different day, how to fix projection. And it's also true of Democrats who might be consumed by their internal feuds over foreign policy and the proper role of government were it not for Trump. That would be very true. I think that, one of the things that I think is holding the Democratic Party together right now is their shared hatred of Trump. And if it weren't for that, it would be destroyed. I'm pretty positive about that. People who hate Democrats, be they Republicans or independents or third-party voters, are drawn to Trump despite his flaws for the same reason sports fans root for any team that takes on their arch rival. The enemy of my enemy is a friend. Yes, but I want to make it really clear, like independents, they tend not to care. Independents generally think that everyone is crazy. This is my experience anyway, in talking to independents and in becoming an independent myself. They kind of think that both sides are like two sides of the same coin. They think both sides are crazy. So I wouldn't put hate on them for Democrats. I think that they think that Democrats are just as crazy as Republicans, right? And the same with third-party voters. Third-party voters are like, none of this represents me at all. Like, whatever, like, burn it all down, start again. But I do agree with the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's like a lesser of two evils argument. As Charles Murray said about the rise of Trump on a 2017 Making Sense podcast interviews, one of the things that struck me most were people who say, "You don't understand. We don't particularly like Donald Trump. We're not defending his character or anything like that. He's our murder weapon." And I think this is pretty short and accurate way of saying what function Trump served. That's very true for a lot of people. And the Trump as murder weapon effect is strengthened right now because, unlike in sports, Trump versus Democrats is the only game in town. Literally, the only game in town. If you're a voter looking to attack the left, the current occupant of the White House is not just your guy, he's your only guy. True. Yes, correct. Moreover, Trump himself views the world exclusively in terms of us versus them, or perhaps more accurately, me versus them. He is the perfect vehicle for the expression of negative partisanship, simultaneously epitomizing and magnifying the tribalism of both sides. I mean, I do agree with that to a certain extent. Trump's a fighter. Trump is never in better form than when he's fighting against something. And how I feel about the left, and I'm just speaking for myself personally, how I feel about the left, like, sick him on him. I don't really care at this point. Like, if he's the guy that's gonna fight against the crazy town that's on the left, then fine, go to it. As I explained in why Trump has such a hold on his followers, Trump is successful because his hyper-tribalism dovetails perfectly with this polarized moment in American history. She's overlooking the hyper-tribalism on the left. I think, again, and I've now facilitated a lot of conversations between people on the right and the left. I see this being true over and over and over again. The right wants to find common ground. They like having discussions. They like having an open mind. They find it invigorating. The left does not. So I see more hyper-tribalism on the left than I do on the right every day of the week, every single day. And if you don't believe me, join my civil dialogue discussion group because really that's the epitome of it. Every single time something comes up and like a problem in the group, someone calling someone else out for tribalism, it's always on the left. It's always. And I have people on the right that are begging for more conversations with left-leaning people. They want to have these dialogues, and the left is like, no, I'm not going to talk to Trump supporters. I mean, I see it like literally, well, not every day anymore. We've kind of calmed it down, but I see it quite often. By virtue of his obsessive us versus them thinking, Trump embodies the national zeitgeist in a way no one else can, serving as a powerful organizing force for people on both sides of the divide who are already view each other with animosity. Again, the right doesn't view the left with animosity. The left views the right with animosity. That's the difference. Since voters aren't drawn to Trump because of who he is or what he stands for, pause. Wrong. Wrong. The right loves what Trump stands for. The right likes his policies. Listen, I just did a radio interview earlier today with a conservative, and she said, well, let me get this straight, Carolyn. You're going to vote for Trump out of sheer spite? And I said, yes, absolutely. I'm going to vote for Trump out of sheer unadulterated spite. And she said, well, can we convince you to vote for him because of his policies? Because I love his policies. His policies are great. They love his policies, man. They really do. I got to tell you, there are some Trump policies that I'm a fan of. I don't think that any president gets anything universally wrong or universally right. There are some things that he's done that I do like. But mostly, like, I'm voting for him out of spite. That's just, at least right now, who knows what will happen between now and November, but that's where I'm at right now. So since Trump voters aren't drawn to Trump because of who he is or what he stands for, again, that's wrong, that's not correct. But because of who he hates and who hates him, when we attack him, it doesn't dissuade or demobilize his supporters. It galvanizes them. That part is correct. Absolutely. Indeed, every time a Democrat launches a political assault on the president, it reaffirms their decisions to back him. If Democrats hate Trump so much, he must be doing something right. Yes. The bullied underdog. A second factor driving the fervent support of Trump voters is an underdog effect. In politics, as in sports, fans prefer to root for David rather than Goliath. When people believe a team is trailing or on the brink of elimination, they will strongly support them. They will support them more strongly, or in some cases, even abandon their side to support the opponent. especially if the other side is perceived as dominant or having an unfair advantage. It is the latter part of this phenomenon where Trump truly excels by virtue of his persecution complex. The president constantly portrays himself as a martyr in a war against the left, a war in which he and his followers are the victims. In his view, no president in the history of our country has been treated so badly. The Washington Post, Philip Rucker, said of Trump in 2018, "Unfair is one of his favorite words, and he has used it in 69 tweets." 69, exactly. He calls the federal investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election a rigged witch hunt. He accused the FBI of infiltrating his campaign with spies. He insists the media is running a sophisticated disinformation operation to discredit him. Here's the thing about those things. They've all been proven true. This is true. This is not made up. Listen, man, this is why General Flynn was exonerated by the DOJ. And listen, I want to, side note about Obamagate for a second. Y'all have made Obamagate way too complicated to understand for, average people that haven't been following this stuff for years. Because I tried so hard, man. I even went to CPAC. There were sessions on these things for days. I had such a hard time following it. Finally, I broke down on Twitter yesterday. I was like, someone just needs to give me a simple primer. I just need a timeline. I need a high level overview because there are all these articles flying around with all these details and these infographics, and it's too much information, man. Listen, at least maybe this is the way my mind works. The minute that you overwhelm me with details, my head explodes. But if you give me a basic primer of information, you say, Carlin, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then I can use that to go into the details and make more sense of them. You guys have got to make this easier to understand, and I'm very grateful for Brian Drawn Strike on Twitter for walking me through it, treating me like I'm a 5-year-old for the purpose of this conversation, because once I had that timeline and I understood the basic high-level stuff, then I was able to make sense of it. But it was not until that point. You guys didn't make this an easy lift. So this has all been proven true, man. That's true. That's why they keep bringing it up. And he demands apologies for myriad criticisms and slights in President Trump's telling, which can often be more imaginary than real. Not imaginary, real. Flynn got exonerated. He is the victim, a long-suffering, tormented victim. The theme of persecution is a fundamental part of Trump's appeal. As Republican strategist and never-Trumper Steve Schmidt warned during the impeachment inquiry. Steve Schmidt is a jackass, by the way. At a Trump rally, central to the show was the idea of shared victimization. That's not true, at least not true at the Trump rally that I went to. And I literally went to the first Trump rally after he was acquitted from impeachment. So if there was ever going to be a Trump rally where Trump was going to be persecuted victim, I would think it would be that one. But that wasn't the central theme of the rally. Donald Trump revels in it, has consistently portrayed himself as a victim of the media and of his political opponents, and this impeachment inquiry will all be framed as an unfair effort to overturn a legitimate election. That's what it was, man. The argument will have enormous currency across the right-wing media. It will be believed. It will be believed because it's the truth. Listen, the left has got to get their hands around this. What is going on in words I never thought I would say. What's being portrayed on Fox News and all these websites that are talking about this stuff? That's the truth. That's what actually happened. Go in and look at it, man. This is what the left is missing. It's these conspiracy theories that have been talked about on MSNBC, CNN for the past 3+ years. You guys don't even know. I have had so much cognitive dissonance around this stuff because I had the MSNBC story seared into my brain over this stuff because I heard it over and over and over and over and over again. It's lies, man. That's why they're doing this, because the truth is legitimately at the end of the day the right way to go over these lies that have been perpetrated by Rachel Maddow and CNN and all these things. When Trump frames Democratic attacks such as impeachment as unfair, he doesn't just neutralize them, he turns them into ammunition. Each assault becomes a new indictment that proves Democrats are unscrupulous bullies, unleashing a backfire loop that endlessly amplifies his message because they're telling the truth. As I explained last year, Trump has created a self-reinforcing system. The more he lashes out at others, the more they strike back at him and his followers. And the more people strike back at Trump and his followers, the more they feel persecuted. The escalating sense of persecution binds his followers to him even more tightly. And again, that's because they've got truth on their side. Trump makes, like, the mistake that Trump makes, he sounds like a raving lunatic. The mistake that the right makes, y'all sometimes sound like raving lunatics because you haven't laid out the information in a really clear, really succinct way. I know you think you have. But I gotta be real with you here. I'm a pretty smart person, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Now, part of the reason I couldn't wrap my head around it is because I had MSNBC in my head as well. So there's cognitive dissonance that needs to be overcome as well. But y'all make it too complicated, man. You gotta make it simpler. You gotta drill it down. You gotta make it so a 5-year-old can understand it. Because people are busy. They are busy. It's not that they're unintelligent. It's not that they're unmotivated to understand the truth, it's that they are busy. And so they have a limited amount of time and energy to give you. So you have to make it as easy as possible for them to understand. And once you get them there, it's like, boom, wake up. But like you gotta like, it's just gotta be a lot easier to understand. The dragon in our midst. Supporters who are drawn to Trump primarily because of negative partisanship. Again, that's not true. Wrong. Not affinity to him, his party, or his policies. Wrong. And who are mobilized by Democratic attacks are dragon voters. I guess I'm a dragon voter. That's actually kind of badass. People who aren't particularly dangerous at rest, but can wreak havoc when they're awake and angry. I have been saying for months. Hell has no fury like an Aries scored, man. Watch what happens. Worry about dragon voters should keep Biden's campaign advisors up at night. Unfortunately, instead of figuring out how to quiet the beast, or at the very least not provoke it, Democratic strategists are leaving the dragon out of their calculation entirely, or planning to overpower it by mobilizing a dragon of their own, as if Joe Biden is a dragon that can be mobilized, please. In short, they're relying on tried and true election game plan focused on mobilization and persuasion that treats Trump like any other presidential candidate because they have learned nothing since 2016. It looks like Karen here, again, I told you, Karen's like on point with this article. It looks like she has learned since 2016. She's a political psychologist. I would expect nothing less. But most of the Democrats have not learned a damn thing from what happened in 2016. But as we all know, Trump isn't like other candidates, and 2020 isn't like any other election. A traditional campaign, especially one that relies on a daily drumbeat of negative talking points and ads about the president, may backfire spectacularly, as Hillary Clinton's deplorables comment did in 2016 if it inadvertently riles up dragon voters. To quiet the dragon and win on November 3rd, Democrats must do 3 things. 1. Reduce hatred of Democrats, liberals, and the Democratic Party. Since support for Trump is driven by animus towards the left, our primary objective with this group should be to improve our reputation. Right-leaning voters don't need to like us for this to work. They just need to not hate us so much, man. Karen, you got a mountain to climb there, girl. You really do, because I hate the Democratic Party, like, a lot. I hate them significantly. I don't know what you could do, honestly. And it's not even just her, because this is not about one person. There are great Democrats. There are wonderful people on the left. And I feel like I get into this pattern sometime where I feel like I demonize people on the left too much, and I don't mean to. That's not my intention. My intention is to demonize the people on the far left that are driving me goddamn insane. But there are so many rational, reasonable Democrats that have policy disagreements with what's going on. I totally get that, man. But those people are being drowned out by the far left, and they're not keeping them under control. If those people would put the far left in their place and tell them to cut out the nonsense, this would be a much easier lift. But I just don't see that happening. Number 2, stop attacking Trump. Voters already know Trump is bad. Wrong. In fact, listen, man, I'm going to prove this is wrong. She goes on to say almost nobody likes him, not even many of the people who vote for him. Continuing to talk about how awful he is a waste of resources at best and will backfire at worst. Wrong, man. Trump approval rating ticks up to 51%. This is from The Hill. This is from May 12, 2020. President Trump's job approval ticks up to 51%, up 1 percentage point from 2 weeks ago, according to a new Hill-Harris-X poll. Trump's approval rating is above water, 51%. So don't say no one likes him, because 51% of people do. 3. Start promoting Biden. Recent research on political advertising shows that ads that promote a candidate's strengths are significantly more effective than ads that attack a candidate's weaknesses. What are Biden's strengths exactly? Because Biden seems to be campaigning on, I'm not Donald Trump. That's really Biden's only position. I'm not Donald Trump. Does anyone even know what Biden's positions are on things? Because I really don't anymore. I have no goddamn idea. In this particular case, providing positive information about Biden won't simply mobilize supporters and persuade the undecided, it will also alleviate the fear, anxiety, and anger that inspire right-leaning voters to turn out and fight for Trump even when they don't like him. They do like him. 51%, Karen, 51%. Start looking at the polls, man. Demobilizing Trump voters is worth the investment. Given how much time Democrats spend obsessing about mobilizing our voters, it's striking how little time we spend thinking about demobilizing Trumps. While even the best campaigns can't win the election by converting dragon voters into Biden supporters, a weak campaign can easily lose the election. She's bringing up a wonderful point here, because research is telling us that Trump supporters are way more excited to vote for Donald Trump than Democrats are to vote for Joe Biden. No one is excited to vote for Joe Biden. Somebody like, oh God, I'm going to misquote this. Someone please correct me. It's 19% of people are really excited to vote for Joe Biden, or maybe it's 23% or something like that. But it's a really, really, really low number. No one's excited to vote for Joe Biden. And so maybe making Trump voters less excited to vote for him could be a winning strategy. Let's see what she says. As for the Trump-loving friend I referenced at the beginning of this article, and others like him across the country, there's not much chance of converting them back into third-party voters or undecided right-leaning independents before November. True. No matter what we do, they're almost certainly going to vote for Trump. However, there are 2 ways we can make a difference. Soothe their anger so they don't spend all their resources persuading and mobilizing others against us. Probably not going to happen. 2, avoid converting others into Trump supporters just like them. Oh man, the walkaway movement grows every day, grows every single day. Democrats, we still have nearly 6 months until the election. Let's not recreate Clinton's 2016 campaign with its never-ending attacks on Trump. We know where that will end, and the stakes are just too high. The dragon is watching. Let's not provoke it. Karen here reminds me of where I was at when I first started my journey towards going to a Trump rally and then ultimately becoming a Trump voter. Listen, man, I started wanting to understand Trump voters. This whole thing for me started from a Democrat needs to win to replace Donald Trump, and we can't have a Democrat win if we don't understand why people are voting for Donald Trump. That was what this whole thing started out as. I wanted to understand why people were voting for him. And as I kept digging, slowly I realized, holy crap, those people have a point. And holy crap, people on the left are insane. They're crazy. And no one on the left wanted to talk to me about this. All my liberal friends were like, Carlin, you just don't understand. I don't even know why you're looking at this material. You don't understand. Trump's just a horrible guy. His voters are Nazis. They're white supremacists. I don't know why you're doing this. That was what I experienced for months as I was digging into this. And this is what this reminds me of. It's she's made a genuine effort to try to understand. So I got to give her props for that. She's got a lot right. But she needs to keep digging, because there's more to it than she's uncovered just yet. And who knows? Maybe if she keeps digging, she'll find herself voting for him too. Because the left is crazy, and Trump, words I never thought I'd say, is a gift that we have been given to fight the insanity of the left.